Welcome to The Longer Game, the only show that's dedicated to the future of retail. We bring on real-life people in the retail industry. We talk about their experiences, we share their stories, we apply it to what's currently going on in the market, and we look towards the future of retail. You could say it's Retail Reimagined. My name is Maher. I run a customized, done-for-you service agency called Cartology that helps brands win on Amazon. Now, while my expertise stems in the Amazon field, we bring on a wide array of guests because retail is expansive. You've got e-commerce. Yes, you've got marketplaces like Amazon. You've also got brick and mortar that is evolving. You've got logistics. You've got technology, finance. There are so many aspects to retail, and it's complicated. So we're here to bring you the entire story. Do you think that you have an interesting story and you'd like to tell it on the podcast? Then go to thelongergame.com and fill out a form to be a guest on the show today. You can catch The Longer Game on any social channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our website, thelongergame.com. We've got all awesome guests on this show, so that I will promise. Are you ready to hear more about the future of retail? Let's get down to business. Welcome to The Longer Game. I almost forgot the name of my podcast there for a second, but welcome to The Longer Game, where we talk about all things retail. Our tagline is Retail Reimagined, but the reality is what we're talking about, what's going on in retail now, what is the future of retail? And there's a lot of opinions on that, and that's why I bring people on the show, because they get to talk about their opinions, and I get to tell them how wrong they are, and then I look really awesome, and everything goes really great for me. Today on the show, I have a friend of mine. I would call him a friend. Let's see if he returns that. But his name is Keith Hartnett. He is the CEO of Better World Products, and they worked with sustainable and social impact brands. I think I said that right. But welcome, Keith.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. Would definitely call you a friend as well.
We've actually hung out in person before.
We have, yeah. I think Bend, Oregon. That was the first time.
Bend, Oregon.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good time. That was the rocket scene.
I really enjoyed that show. It was fun.
Yeah, I wish for sure that they would do that again. I know they're having trouble putting all that together again, but those events are awesome.
I then drove through the mountains into Portland while it was raining to go see my uncle and aunt and cousins that live in Portland, and that was one of the diciest drives I've ever done in my life while it was raining. I mean, it was really. Yeah, I was like, okay, I really hope I don't get in an accident.
Yeah, it comes down heavy. It was pretty close to winter, right, when we were there?
I think it was September.
Okay, yeah. I
October.
remember one day being cold. Like they were worried about us being outside in the tent.
Well, and they were doing snow. One of the events was like a snowshoe thing, wasn't it?
That's right, yes. Did you do that one?
Oh, maybe it was March. Maybe that's what it was. One of those months in the year.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I did not do the snowshoe event. I think I just stayed back and had drinks or something like that. And that was the first time that I even discovered non-alcoholic beer.
Yes. Did I introduce you to that?
I think you were talking about how you had changed over to that.
Yeah.
And I've since tried Athletic Brewing Company. I can't remember who was there. I think it was a different company that was there. And it's cool. I mean, like if I didn't drink or I wanted something that was kind of similar, I could totally get it. I would probably just like drink kombucha maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
If I were wanting something, but I don't really drink a lot of beer anyway, so I'll just stick with the regular alcoholic bourbon.
Yeah. I mean, I love it because I used to drink beer and I don't drink alcohol anymore. But it's amazing how good of a job they're doing making it taste exactly the same. And you really do, like, at least for me personally, I still get the placebo of like, social anxiety gone. I'm just relaxed, just as if I was drinking alcohol. It's great.
I think there's I don't know, man, I'm really trying to think of it. I'm scrambling for the word here, but there is maybe this idea that, drinking alcohol for the effect, like, oh, I just enjoy a couple of drinks, like that's bad. And I think it depends. If you are drinking because I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but if you're drinking because I hate my life and I'm self-medicating, there's deeper problems there, and it's
Yeah.
not going to solve your problem. That's the main thing. It can obviously cause issues, but people have been using substances and some animals too for a really long time. One of the best books I ever read was called The Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan. He also wrote Omnivore's Dilemma. And the book goes through 4 different desires and the plants that go along with that. And one of them was intoxication, and cannabis was the plant. And in there, he researched and talked about how Native American tribes used peyote or things like that. They used hallucinogenic stuff, and went through a bunch of different cultures. And culture could even be like Catholics. Drinking is a big part of that culture a lot of times. But then each culture would also say, well, we don't like this thing. Like for Native Americans, peyote was great, but alcohol was bad. So there's like this line of, well, this is okay, but everything outside of that is bad. So I think it really comes down to, what you're using it for. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with like that. Like, hey, this is just relaxing a little bit. It's nice to have. And I think you'd be surprised at how many people have some kind of social anxiety. Being around people just heightens things up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know I'm one of them. And like even going out to drinks with friends, like I would be really happy once I got a few sips into that beer.
I'm less bothered by that because I'm a little bit of a performer, but it
You're
depends
super
upon the
social. Yeah.
it depends upon the situation though too. There are
Yeah.
definitely times where I've dealt with depression and anxiety since I was 18, so more than half my life now. And there's definitely been times where I'm like, man, I don't want to be here, and there definitely feels like there's this facade. But I've also noticed that I really appreciate the company of a few people instead of being around a big group of people. Like going to a big show and having to be on, talking with people, like that's can be very draining.
Yeah, for sure. I know like I'm exhausted after large groups. But
I want to put that on a t-shirt. I'm exhausted after large groups. All right, tell people more about Better World Products. Tell us about what you're doing. And honestly, I'm really curious to know. I think I have an idea, but I don't want to speak for you. So why the focus on better impact, social impact? Why sustainability? So tell us more about that, and then about the company and why you're focusing on that.
yeah, so comes from two things. So Better World Products is an agency now, but it before was a wholesale operation where we were looking to work with better products or, these types of brands that either are building sustainable types of products or trying to incorporate a lot of social impact into their business design. Um, what I ended up finding at the time, and one of the big reasons for the pivot into an agency, was that all of these brands hated Amazon, um, especially the sustainable brands. Like this has changed now. I was just looking around recently, and I remember one brand I was talking to a VP of marketing maybe in 2018, and when I said I worked on Amazon, the hate that was in her eyes, it was unreal. Like that was probably the first time I realized that this was going to be a lot harder than I thought.
Man,
Yeah. But the reason I incorporated it is because before I started in Amazon, I worked at a nonprofit and I was interested in more sort of impact oriented career, helping people. Um, that faded away when I got into the Amazon world because unfortunately, what happens is that at the nonprofit, you don't get paid a lot. And I was trying to figure out how can I make money and travel around the world. I
and
discovered
still do good.
Amazon. I discovered arbitrage, and that I could do that online. And I did that for about a year. I had quit my job. I moved to Brazil. I ended up there for maybe 5 or 6 months and traveled around a lot after that to Europe and did that. What I found was that arbitrage was more of a job, and that I was just doing the opposite of sort of core values of just buying stuff, shipping it somewhere, and selling the stuff. And it was just stuff. Um, but it's kind of how I cut my teeth on Amazon and started learning a lot about that world. So I began the shift. I wanted to bring the impact in, and that's kind of where Better World Products came in, where I began to shift into the wholesale and service side.
There is often an either or mentality of things, and we're gonna talk about that in a different capacity. But it seems like people feel like you either do this or that in totality, and I think the reality is it doesn't have to be, things don't have to be mutually exclusive of each other. What I'm getting at here is making money or selling things and doing good. Like, people put evils associated with like capitalism or whatever the case might be. And I think it comes down to the people. The people who, now I think there are some systems that are broken. Like, I'm not saying a dictatorship is a good system. I do think that that's a bad setup, but it also goes back to the people who are dictating what's going on. They've got full autonomy. That's pretty dangerous. Like, I want accountability in my life. Maybe that seems crazy, but there's a reason why my wife and I are very open with each other. We talk about stuff. She checks me, I check her, and I'm open to that. I want to be, I don't care so much about being right all the time, but I do want to make sure that I'm being, that I, like you talked about, being aligned with core values. I do want to be a good and better person as time goes on. I put guys in my life that I believe are going to speak God's truth into my life, and I'm willing to hear what they have to say, even if it's tough. So I think there needs to be a level of accountability. When that goes unchecked, it's a bad story. But you can do good and still make money.
Yeah. And this,
right?
yeah, this kind of, this conflict, and it ties a lot into people's relationship with money as well. But it ties to something we were talking about earlier in terms of growth and selling, and whether that's good or bad and how that feels. It's really hard to mix the both in your head if you've grown up thinking and being taught in a very specific way.
I think you also have to realize at a certain point that there's going to be some compromise.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even on our end, like with everything, we're looking to work with sustainable and social impact brands. But we put small in there because if someone walks through our door, even if they don't check on the boxes, we don't want to just turn them away. We still want to help them.
And the reality too is there's a lot of realities, but this current reality is also, maybe they're not quite where they want to be, but they have the potential to be more impactful. But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And we would want to be a positive influence in that situation.
I don't think most big companies that are doing big things started that way. I mean, even just classic American stories of like Coca-Cola, or even any of the big banks that are big banks right now, they didn't start out as these huge conglomerates. It was like a family run or own thing, and then someone took that idea. I mean, that was the same with McDonald's. Someone took it and then turned it into something that was more growth oriented, more commoditized type stuff. So, but you have to start somewhere. But I don't think the two are mutually exclusive of each other, and you are proof of that.
Yeah, this is true.
And I don't think money's a bad thing either. I think maybe that's why people say that earning money or capitalism is an evil. Again, I think it comes back to the people. Money's a tool. People say that that money is the root of all evil, and that's actually not. They're taking that phrase from the Bible, and that's actually not actually what it says. It is the love of money is the root of all evil.
That makes a lot more sense.
It's not money. It's, I need this. I want this money. I need more of this. And that's just means to an end. It's not, money is great if you use it in the right way. I was jokingly saying you could talk about whatever you want on the show unless it was about human trafficking. And I say that because there are some anti-human trafficking organizations that I give to, and I'm very passionate about. IJM, or International Justice Mission, is one of them. And they go and they raise money. The money is super impactful, and they tell you, like, you spend this much, it's going to help a woman in Africa create a business. It's going to save, women and children in the Honduras, Nicaragua, there's one other country there, but there's like a triangle there in Central America where
Guatemala.
Guatemala. Thank you.
Mm.
That there's a lot of like sexual abuse and stuff that happens
Yeah.
there, and they talk about, hey, it's going to help this girl get recovery. So like money is super powerful. Same with even lobbying. Lobbying can be very, very negative and bad, but I've actually gone and lobbied with the Congress people in my area to say, hey, we want to advocate for giving money to countries to help stop trafficking. But it's the tool.
Yeah, I mean, you need it, and I know like a company like Patagonia, who I think resisted lobbying and political donations for a very long time. They just, I think, within the last couple of years, have come around to the fact that that's the game that they've got to play if they really want to have an impact, because that's where the big decisions are made. Like that is where the at scale decisions are made. And I was just last summer, I was at the summit for the Conservation Alliance. So we're a member of the Conservation Alliance. We give money every year to people trying to do conservation projects. It's an amazing organization. And what we have here is they have a really good mentality, is that there are people who are in government that are there. There are people from business that are there. There are people from the nonprofits that are raising money for the conservation that are there. And everyone's having a very productive conversation. And of course, to go back to the money, everyone there needs money to do things. You know, the businesses make the money, the nonprofits are organizing the conservation efforts, and the political people, they need to do the influence.
Are you saying that if people work together, they can achieve more than if they if they fight with each other? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in a world of social media, everything becomes very divisive, but like it really is necessary if you really want to get things done. Um, yeah.
Let's dig a little bit about that, because before we were talking about how a lot of you own an agency, I own an agency. I at least hear a lot, and I believe that you do as well, hear from brands that you talk to, oh, I had a really bad experience with an agency. To which I
Yeah.
said, no shit, like you're alive and you're in the space. Like you're gonna deal with bad agencies. Just like any space, there's always bad actors and there's always good actors. And I was gonna make a joke about government, but I'll just keep going. but like you said, there's a need for all these different places, and I think you don't get a chance to have a voice if you don't play any part of the game, if you're not even involved. Like if you're playing Monopoly and you're like, well, I want to win this Monopoly game, but I'm sitting out this round,
Yeah. You're not going to get anything done that way.
I'll just count the money in the bank, but I'm not going to actually use it or spend it. So
Yeah.
we were talking about this agency life and this agency world, and I've had other people on that are agency owners that have talked about this as well. But there seems to be social media is a way to sometimes put on a front. And I don't know if it's always intentional. I think sometimes people believe what they're saying. Maybe they don't. I don't know. It's hard. I can't really say if I don't know those people. But it seems like there is a marketing aspect to things that sometimes doesn't tell the full story.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the nature of social media. People are just like, for any reason that they have in their head, whether they think it's a good thing or whether they think that they're asking for things they shouldn't ask for, I don't think they're going to put the bad times up.
Right.
And yeah, it's just
Look
there's
at how
lots of ways to
badly
track
we
it.
failed at this thing.
Yeah, exactly. The only reason people tend to put the failures up is when they've overcome them.
Right. Well, and in all reality, in the deepest, like darkest moments of my life, I'm just kind of trying to survive.
Yeah.
And there's also, so when I ran an e-commerce business like you, started in that area. I did that for 6 years, from 2010 to 2016. 2016, 2017 is when I got into like consulting and really started building my agency. Before I even knew, I never worked in an agency before. I've never built an agency before. So it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I'm building. I'm building an agency. It's like you crawl and then you walk, and then people are like, oh, you were crawling before, now you're walking. Like, oh, that's what it's called. Okay, cool. Like I was just doing the thing that I thought I
Hmm.
needed to do. And in 2016, the reason that I changed is because my e-commerce business crashed.
Hmm.
That's the easiest and shortest way to say it. And that's the reality. And in that moment, I felt like a failure. And part of it
Yeah.
was because my identity as a business owner and my identity as a human, well, my identity as a human was tied to my business owner identity and the success or failure of that company. And so
Yeah.
when it failed, I thought I was a failure. It took me a year kind of to mentally reframe things and get into a place where I had to get a full time job while shutting down an e commerce company and starting up an agency at the same time because I knew I
Hmm.
had the skill set to do something with it. So that was a really difficult spot. I wasn't ready to go say, "Man, I'm failing right now, everyone." Like, come experience this. It was after that that I was able to share that.
Yeah. And I think like when you're failing or when you have failed, like what do you don't think you have much to offer. You don't like, and if you try to share that, like what's going through your head about what people are going to say, or like is he trying to ask for help, does he want money, why is he actually sharing this? Whereas now that you've entered the next stage and that becomes part of the story, that actually becomes valuable, and now you can share that, and people can learn from that or react to that, and it's kind of more offering value rather than anything that can be interpreted in a negative way. Um, it's really hard to share things that are negative, and it's really hard for people to respond well to things that are shared that are negative.
Do you think that there is value in, which I'm not the biggest fan of that word, but
Yeah.
do you think there is some validity to a reason why people would share those failures afterwards when it comes to marketing? Or do you think like, hey, maybe just focus on the good stuff, don't worry about the sharing the bad stuff, because um, maybe people don't quite believe that, or they feel like it's only to benefit themselves? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's humanizing. I
Okay.
think, and like if we're gonna put that in a business perspective, um, you need people to trust you. So as far as marketing or sales go, if you are open and honest, and it's clear that you're open and honest, then you're going to be more approachable. Um, People are going to trust you more, and understanding your story is a big part of that.
So you should share.
Um, Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think you'd probably be told that you should share as well by sort of, any sort of marketing consultant, in the social space. I think if it's valuable, you should share. I think it shouldn't be intentionally hidden, I guess, is probably the more important part.
Okay, I like that. I think there's a little bit of a dilemma in, do I share this thing, and why am I sharing this thing? If
Yeah.
it's just to get, the views or just get the business, it can work. Is it the right way to do things? I don't know. I was talking with someone who has dealt with some negative experiences with people, and they're like, I'm tired of, dealing with these negative experiences. How do I handle that? Do I confront it? Do I not? And I just said, I think it comes down to what's your motivation. If you're doing it just to spite them, I think that that's probably not the right call. If
Hmm.
you are doing it because you really want to bring clarity to the situation, I think it's okay, even if it's going to ruffle some feathers, even if people are uncomfortable. But I think that's okay. But I really do feel like the motivation behind it matters.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, intention behind action is got to be one of the most important things in judging whether or not that was a good or a bad idea.
And then just the actual action itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I know like I think about that a lot because we'll hire from Upwork a lot. Um, and, as is the nature of things, quite a few of those won't go well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I have to make a decision about closing the contract and leaving a negative review. And what is my intention behind doing that? So, in general, my default is to leave the contract open because I don't want to ruin their ability to make money in the future. Um, but it depends on, what's the lesson. I'm certainly not going to leave a positive review,
Yeah.
because that's not the right lesson to take away from there. Um, but like, I also have to think about, like, am I angry when I'm making this review? That's not a good way to do that. That's not going to be helpful for anyone. That's just hurting someone. And in some cases, you could be significantly impacting their ability to make money. Um, so, like, the intention matters a lot. And I'll usually just wait down the line to decide that. If I think this person, like, is really just going to cause more problems for more people, then maybe that's something I do.
I think it's difficult because honestly, I think just the fact that you're taking a pause to think about why you're doing something, I think that could benefit everyone. I think if more people did that, we'd probably have a lot more clarity
Hmm.
on both ourselves, but we'd also probably feel less guilt about why we do something. Like if it comes down to, you know, not hurting someone and my family getting hurt and hurting someone and protecting my family, I'm going to do the latter. Now, do
Yeah.
I intentionally want to hurt someone? No. But if I'm doing it for the sake of this thing that's very important to me, then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the bruise, the metaphorical bruise that happens. Maybe it is a literal one. If you're trying to, punch my daughter, you might get punched back.
Yeah.
Probably will get punched back if
I
I'm
think that's reasonable. Yeah.
being honest. I'm not plotting it out, but
Right.
that's probably what's gonna happen. But you, I mean, honestly, the very applicable stuff is the same in parenting. Am I telling my daughter no to this thing because I just don't want to deal with it, or is it because, hey, you haven't earned this right to do this thing, or your behavior's not been reflected of this, or am I just being grouchy? And there are times when I've come back and been like, look, hey, I'm sorry, I said this, I should not have done this. Now, you still should not be doing this thing, but I should not have done this thing this way, because I want her to have clarity on that and not just be feeling like my dad's an oaf. Because I feel like that was, a lot of how maybe us and even previous generations grew up. It was like, it's my way or the highway, and that's it.
Yeah, which is not a good way to go about it. I
It's just
know.
frustrating.
Yeah, and I think it translates really well to business and the agency side, because I mean, I really like what you said about going back and saying sorry, you shouldn't have done that. Having that conversation. That's also really important in just managing the team, because, and I've told people that work for me this, inevitably there will be a moment where I am so stressed because I'm balancing all these things that I'm just not going to react well to something that happens. And, I'm just going to ask for forgiveness now, and I'll come back to you after and say sorry. Um, and that can be understood. And that I think is not unreasonable. But it's important to come back and have that conversation, and sort of, because then, you're saying you did something wrong. They will feel better about that. Um, Otherwise, just bad things begin to manifest and build, and it's not good.
I think part of the reason brands have bad experiences with agencies is because of intention. Like, if your intention is to grow and that's it, like, why are you growing and how are you doing it
Hmm.
matters. If you have a bad experience with an agency, it could be because that agency is not treating their people well, and so they have high turnover. I mean, and
Yeah.
when I say treating, I don't even mean like pay. Like, maybe it's bad pay, but maybe it's just they don't value you. They talk down to you. They belittle you in front of colleagues. They belittle you in front of clients. No one's going to stick around for that long term. Like, some people might for a little while, but I don't care how much you pay them. They're going to go looking for something else. And I believe some people have come to the conclusion like, hey, I could go work at this other place that maybe I don't make quite as much, but I feel better about being there than the opposite of that. But that's part of the reason why I think people have bad experiences, because it's the agency wants to grow, but why is it that you're actually growing? And
Yeah.
they're not thinking about that.
Yeah. And it's tough because I know, I mean, we've seen people come from other agencies with people that I know run them. And I know they're good at what they do. I also know they've recently, like, would have grown, big growth spurt. And if they had seen the work that was going on, or the absence of work that was going on, they would not be okay with that. Um, And I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Like sometimes people just fall into the growth, and we can see this a lot with the sort of the social media stuff when something goes viral or someone suddenly gets a huge exposure, and they try to fill the gap for, they say yes to everyone, which can also be a very bad decision when you're trying to grow but growing too much. Um,
Well,
I
if
know
you
we
only
try to,
want to grow, you probably have to say more yeses to people than
yeah,
nos.
and yeah, I think the nature is that you assume you're going to figure it out as you go, um, and that's
But you
yeah,
could figure it out as you go.
yeah, yeah. You will figure out some of it as you go.
But there will
Uh,
be collateral damage in the process.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Which is like is
So I think you're going
generally
to have
always the
some
case for
of.
progress. Yeah,
I was just going to say you're going to have some, but how much that needed to happen and how much didn't need to happen.
yeah, and there is a really important consideration here when it comes to reputation and the long-term investment in that. Um, I know there are some agencies in our space that have grown really fast and they don't have a good reputation. I know I see some agencies that are growing really fast that should have a good reputation, but I'm starting to see some of their work come in, and I'm like, okay, this could go bad. And when
And
we
we're going to
have
list all
things,
those agencies in the comment section, just
yes,
so
I'll
you
put
know.
the
So go
names
ahead
just for all.
and go ahead
Yeah,
and look down in the comments. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, I mean, the people who own them and start them are great. Um, they're awesome. I know them. I've sat down with them. I've had conversations with them. They know their stuff. Um, it's kind of, and we were talking about this before, but the difference between the sort of the practitioner and the marketer. A lot of these people were practitioners. The other side of this is that practitioners generally, if they're growing really fast, they need to learn all the stuff in business all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and that's
You got
that's
to
when
learn
things go really
sales, you got to learn marketing, you got to learn operations, you got to learn all this stuff. And that takes you away from
yeah,
the actual work itself, which is normal.
yeah. And I know as well, like going through, we've done sort of three like big investment hires, more investment in terms of time over the past year, and the amount of time it takes to actually hire someone good is significant. Like, you could be talking to 20, 30 people. That's 20 to 30 hours at least,
Yeah.
with people you're never going to talk to again. Um, and then you've got second rounds, and then you've got onboarding. And if you're trying to scale and you need 10 people, like that time doesn't exist. It just isn't there.
I think you touched on something that's really important, and you just talked about apologizing. You manage people, you interact with clients. Tell me more about your experiences apologizing to your team and apologizing to clients. What has that been like?
I can tell you, we had a bad hire recently. Uh, Thankfully, I fired them after a month, so it didn't drag on. Uh, I had to apologize to this client quite a few times. Um, on the call with them, I had to apologize because of the quality of work they were receiving. Uh, I gave them money back because suddenly had to redo all the work, which was, more of an investment in their time. I had to bring other people from the team on, have calls with them, get up to speed, take on that work. There's delays in the impact that we were saying we were going to have. Um, they're still around. Uh, Hopefully, they will continue to stick around. This is a current moment event, so that call with them was maybe a couple weeks ago. But we're working hard to make sure that we can keep them, to make sure that we make things right. Um, because I know, even though like this is one of the hires we made in December, I was so excited when I made this hire. I was so happy. I found this person. Um, and what I realized is that I should have just spent more time on the hiring process.
Hmm.
I should have interviewed more people. I should have done more rounds with him. His CV was extremely impressive. Um, he talked the talk. He knew everything. What actually ended up happening is that the culture he came from uh, had a different or zero sense of accountability. They were growing so fast that quality of work almost didn't matter. You just had to get the stuff done and shipped out.
Wow.
Yeah. And that does not fit with our agency model where, the idea is to deliver quality of work.
Sometimes the quality and the quantity can overlap, but it can be very difficult to do at the scale that you might want to have the quantity. Another example of that would be business owners who say, I want to grow and be profitable at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's not an impossible thing to do,
Right.
but to have 100% growth year over year and be very profitable, like that is a very difficult thing to do, if not impossible. I mean, I don't know anything about the business, the finances, whatever. I'm just throwing out a number there, but to aggressively grow and be aggressively profitable, like that really doesn't happen. And if you can come up with an explanation for it, I'm going to guess that it's like the 1% or maybe even 0.1% versus the majority of people. Now you can grow and be profitable. I just think your expectations have to be different.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've recently had a conversation like that where we were doing, yearly goals. And basically the client said, I want to double year over year revenue and I want to double year over year profitability. And it was like, I knew that was impossible because the Amazon side of the operation was already getting handicapped by Walmart. And Walmart was seriously outperforming Amazon in this case. And that was the priority. And so buy boxes were getting crushed on Amazon, like on all their top products.
Because they were just lowering the price on Walmart?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the fees are lower on Walmart. They were getting priority in marketing places. Probably
Amazon don't play with those different prices.
no.
They don't play well with that.
Yeah. So their buy boxes were getting suppressed, which we were running ads there. The conversion rate is no good. Everything gets really expensive all of a sudden. So profitability is quite hard to come by when the top 10 SKUs in your catalog suddenly aren't converting. But anyways, I mean that was a tough conversation. Trying to explain that and trying to find that way around, but people definitely do have these types of expectations, and we kind of just have to have the conversations with them about what is or is not reasonable. And it's usually much easier if someone said, I want to get to X, how can I do that? Because then we can come up with an idea of how this approach will take. And like in terms of like how do you actually do that? Well, the only solutions I could come up with was basically all the costs don't show up on the Amazon P&L because you're doing off Amazon marketing. And that is what is a driver of growth, which I think is something that a lot of brands who hear about or are jumping on Amazon first as their channel don't realize is that your success on Amazon is largely dictated by your success off Amazon, especially these days, where brand matters so much more, where distribution and awareness is so important because Amazon's just so competitive now.
I don't think the days of just launching on Amazon and seeing record growth and being top of your category in the first month, I don't think that happens. I mean, I'm not seeing that happen, but it's very difficult to do that, especially really if you're only Amazon. If you've got an outside presence, we had a brand that we launched on Amazon recently, and they were doing significant revenue outside of Amazon. They were just now, products are being sold, but it was them that started to take ownership. And we saw stuff go like top of the category. And that doesn't happen. And I'm talking about like in the top 10 in the main category. Wow. I would love to take all the credit for that.
Right.
But the reality is we had an impact, but the reality is they had a strong brand that people knew. And there's actually already sales history in some cases on Amazon, so that was being accelerated. That would not have been possible if they were not distributed in other retail channels, brick and mortar, and if they had not already done significant advertising. And that's part of the reason why they got such great results. Now, of course, somebody definitely could have fumbled on Amazon and it would have sucked and not been quite to the level that it was, but it was a combined effort. It was not, if you want to create, let me put it this way, if you want to create something out of nothing on Amazon, it's really hard to do these days.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, pre-pandemic, just towards the up to that, we had probably already seen sort of the death of white label sort of launch products, make tons of money on the Amazon train. I would say that at this point, we're probably going to see the death of private label as a sole Amazon sort of make some money on the side business model. And I think it's going to be much more for us to be more about channel managers than to magically find this amazing amount of revenue that's there. The brand has to have everything else already going for it, or plans to have it go for it, because otherwise it's just going to be very difficult and you're not going to get very far very fast.
That's the new Amazon playbook, people. You heard it here first. But there's a ton of truth in that. And it used to be, I was talking with a friend of mine, Brett Bohannon. Maybe you know him. And okay, just say yes. Just go like this. Yes,
yes,
I
yes.
do. Yes, I know. But he is in the Amazon space, and he started his own brand back in like 2016. Maybe it was like 20. I don't know. Maybe it was 2016. But it was like a couple $100 invested, made it a couple $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
It is a significant investment, and so if you're thinking of Amazon as a get rich quick scheme, think again. I also heard someone named John Durkitz recently say, which is so true, people got so spoiled that you can scale quickly on Amazon, they forget, like now that it's become more competitive, like how difficult brand building is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's true. You can scale quickly on Amazon at a cost, maybe better margins or in a more significant way, quicker than retail. Let's be honest though, 82% of products are still being bought in stores. So, I mean, as much as like Amazon's my focus, it's your focus, retail is still very, very big. So, but you can scale quickly on Amazon because of the reach and how quickly you can reach people and the accessibility of it. But it costs a lot to do that. And it costs now more just because advertising has become such a big piece. You can't just do it organically. I would call it maybe a little bit of luck in, did I have the right terms? Did I run the right discount promotion to get ranked high on Amazon in the days of, launching stuff and just seeing stuff skyrocket? But I mean, you can't, now ads are such a big part of it. There's a lot more ad placement. So there's more inventory. There's more emphasis on that. And you have to know what you're doing there, but there's just a cost that's associated with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Amazon is so much harder than it used to be, which I would say probably speaks more to how easy it used to be, because now it's basically just hard like it's always been.
Or maybe like it should be, or it's been in
Yeah.
other channels.
That's what I mean exactly. Like, people were not, jumping around getting onto shelves on stores like it was so easy and then getting all the sales. That's always been hard. Like I have family members who have a food startup, and they're just hustling all the time to get into stores, and it's hard, really hard.
People that want to get on retail shelves often think, oh, I just need to get on the retail shelf and then I'm good. I don't need to spend time investing on product packaging and all that stuff. Like, I just need to get on the shelf. And the reality is, once you're on the shelf, you still have to get the consideration of the buyer, of the consumer, and product packaging and how you present yourself is important. Of course, how well they know your brand going into the store matters. That's the visibility piece. That's the brand play that's outside of the store. Someone's just finding you inside of a Kroger for the first time. How likely are they to take a chance if they never have seen you before from scratch? And I don't have a metric on that, but I'm going to guess I'm going to make up something and say maybe they're like, 3 times more likely to purchase your product if they know you. Even if it's 2 times, like even if it's 50% more likely, I'll take those odds over not knowing me at all. And the reality is now, just like you said, Amazon used to be, big shelf, couple products. Oh, okay, well, there's only a couple things to pick with. Great, and there's demand. But now it's a much more crowded shelf, and you have to try and stick out.
Yeah, and all of most of the most visible shelf space is ads, and they're getting really expensive. I know I saw a post on LinkedIn today. They were making a joke about how Bezos is going to get rich, his next plan. And basically, he had a screenshot of CPCs, like suggested CPCs, over $100 for all the terms. These must have been HSA ads, but and the terms were general, but like that's getting up there. And I mean, we see these going all the time too. Like you can in the ad console, you can just put the CPC measurement there, and you can just kind of see it going up. So unless you're working really hard to find new opportunities to keep those CPCs down, which means different levels of exposure for you versus brands who can afford that, the costs just keep going up.
I think that's a good place to pause and reflect and just let that sink in for people. Keith, if people want to know, thank you for coming on, by the way. It's a great conversation. We probably could have gone much longer, and maybe when I see you in person next, we can continue that conversation and keep building out that list of agencies that we'll put in the comment section. For sure. We're gonna dox everybody. It's just gonna be, and we'll have to probably dox ourselves in the process. But if people want to know more about what you're doing, where can they find you? Are they, going to conservation shows? Are they
LinkedIn? LinkedIn would be the best place to find me.
Where is that? Everyone.
LinkedIn.
I thought you said clicked in. I was like, tell me more about this clicked in. I got to get the fluff out of my ears.
No worries. No, LinkedIn is the easiest place to find me. You can also find me on the blog on our website, betterworldproducts.org.
We will actually link to that in the comment section.
Awesome. Yes.
Or in the show notes description, whatever it's called. I don't know.
I know I always tell myself that I'm going to write a blog post every week, and then it almost never happens. But we do put a lot of content out there, and we put a lot of work into it. So there's some good stuff for sure.
Cool. Well, people go check that out. Betterworldproducts.com. Is that right?
That's .org.
.org. Oh, very nice.
I made it very difficult for us. Yeah.
No. I think that's great. It's different for sure.
It's on brand.
It's exactly. That was exactly where I was going with that. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. This has been another episode where we dox people and we talk. I can't help myself, man. This has been an episode where we talk a lot more about Amazon. I think the general reality is it's a lot more difficult. So think about when you're going out there, people, when you're thinking about being on Amazon, you got to be strategic. And all I mean by that is you got to know what you got to put in order to know what you want to get out. And you have to be able to pull the right levers, because you could certainly dump a bunch of cash, but it doesn't mean you're going to. Yeah. It's always great to just dump cash and not get it back. But that's the show, people. There's really nothing else for you to see here. So you don't got to go home, but you got to, I don't know, leave or something like that. So that's it. We'll see you guys later. All right. That was the show. What did you think? That was the longer game. We would love for you to share the show with other people and to leave us a review of the show. So go to iTunes, go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, comment, leave a review, and share this on any social channels that you are active on and wherever you have influence. We want to share this story and stories like it to as many people as possible. Do you have a compelling story and do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it, and you're in the retail industry, then go to thelongergame.com, fill out a form, and we will contact you about coming on the show. You can find us on any social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can go to our website, thelongergame.com, to actually read all of these episodes in blog form in text, because we know not everyone's going to listen. This podcast is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We are a customized, done-for-you service agency that helps brands win on Amazon. It is super complex selling on the Amazon marketplace. We help simplify that for you. This podcast is also brought to you by Podcastify Me. They are a full-service podcast production company that designs podcasts around people who are paid for their advice, that is coaches. If you want someone to help create, strategize, and distribute your podcast to the masses, go to podcastify.me to find out more. I've so enjoyed that you've been a part of the conversation and that you've given of your time to hear these people's stories. We'd love for you to share. If you want to find out more, just go to thelongergame.com. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. And until next time, cheers.